Chapter 32, Snow Knight Empire. In the northern stronghold of Wind City, the 110-year-old Marquis Xiumu was busy inspecting his troops at the military camp. The bloody sky over the eastern winter forest a week ago, along with the recent death of the church's apostle, had made the tense atmosphere in Wind City even heavier. Although the forest near the border seems peaceful for now, to the people of Wind City, this calm feels like the quiet before a storm. The newly born Demon King might already see them as prey to boost its power. The constant threat of an abyssal demon attack hangs over the city, giving the residents a fear and heavy feeling. Soldiers in the north have started evacuating the elderly, weak, women and children, while those capable of fighting are arming themselves. There's no doubt, the entire city is preparing for war. Marquis Xiumu, the commander-in-chief of Wind City, has been working non-stop for a week, his nerves stretched to the limit. Looking at the group of about 30,000 newly armed soldiers in front of him, Xiumu fell into deep thought. At that moment, the bearded swordsman Asu by his side asked, "My lord, have you made a decision?" "Send them to Galro's fortress. The terrain there is too flat. It's hard to defend without a strong military presence." Xiumu answered after studying the map closely. "Understood, my lord." Asu responded respectfully and relayed the orders to the person in charge of the troops. Under Xiumu's watchful eye, the troops marched off powerfully toward the front line. After watching the troops leave, Xiumu crossed his arms and looked into the distance. The Wind City and its surrounding military bases have a total force of 300,000. The defense line near the winter forest is too long, and there are 13 key fortresses to consider. Deciding how to allocate these forces has become a pressing issue. In the past, 300,000 troops were enough to deal with scattered abyssal demon attacks, but this time is different. A new Demon King has emerged in the forest, rallying abyssal demons in numbers at least 100 times greater than usual. By Xiumu's own assessment, 300,000 troops won't be enough if the abyssal demons launch an attack. It's not even enough to fill the gaps in their teeth. Thinking of this, Xiumu felt extremely anxious, with a solemn look in his deep blue eyes. The old Marquis couldn't help but look at the big, bearded swordsman next to him again and ask, "Asu, where are the nearby reinforcements?" "The closest Western Army Corps has just crossed the Western Mountain Pass and is expected to take another week to arrive." "A week so slow?" "Ah, it's winter now, and the road to Wind City is already difficult to traverse. Now it's even blocked by accumulated snow. 1 week is already fast." "This is damn frustrating." Xiumu couldn't help but curse. By the time they arrive, Wind City might already be gone. Watching the old man's irritable demeanor, as he could only respond with a resigned smile. "However, my lord, Asumo's church has said they will send reinforcements, and there are already a few squads that have reached the frontline fortresses. One of them even includes the so-called Girl of Destiny." "Asumo's church?" Xiumu frowned slightly. He didn't have a good impression of the church, nor of the so-called Girl of Destiny. He always felt that she was a puppet created by the church to deceive people. In the past, Xiumu was disdainful of cooperating with the church, but now he had no choice. "Well, if their troops arrive, go and meet them. As for those few squads, just let them pass through each fortress and see what they want to do." "Okay." Asu nodded slightly, somewhat displeased. Suddenly, a loud noise interrupted their conversation. Boom! Just then, a cloud of dust rose, and a lavish carriage burst into the camp. Right in front of the stunned soldiers and the Marquis himself, a middle-aged woman in a noble dress with white hair on her temples boldly kicked open the door of the carriage and jumped down with great momentum. The moment Xiumu saw this middle-aged woman, he trembled all over and rushed down from the high platform to her side in a hurry. Aurora, didn't I ask Asu to escort you to the south for refuge? Why? Why haven't you left yet? Leave, where would I go? The woman, who is the wife of Marquis Zumu, is a tough woman named Aurora. When she heard her husband's words, anger suddenly rose in her eyes. How many times do I have to say it? I won't leave my husband alone. Besides, I won't leave my city until I find my granddaughter. Madam, please, the servant stuttered. What, madam, shut up, Aurora shouted. Facing his wife's anger, Marquis Zumu shrank in fear and lowered his head. Seeing the Marquis's dilemma, the servant Asu couldn't help but walk up to Madam Aurora. Madam, it's very dangerous here now. However, before Asu could finish his sentence, he was met with Madam Aurora's fierce gaze. What are you afraid of? When I was fighting demons on the front line before you weren't even born, so shut up. Yes, ma'am. Seeing that his wife had no intention of seeking refuge, Marquis Zumu could only shake his head helplessly and ask, "Why did you suddenly come here?" "Why else would I come?" said impatiently. "It's been a week since you left the house and you haven't even sent a message. Do you want to worry me to death?" I'm sorry. Sai, considering the current situation, I won't scold you, however. Aurora then took a deep breath and looked earnestly at her husband. Any news of Yuener? Facing his wife's question, Zumu lowered his head, mixed emotions swirling within him. I'm sorry, still nothing. His voice was tinged with deep regret and guilt. Right now, we suspect that those slave traders have already taken Yuener out of the boundaries of Wind City, into the lawless area between the city and Winter Forest. What? How could this happen? Upon hearing this, Aurora's eyes filled with deep anxiety, even a touch of despair. Once entering that desolate area, where few tread, it would be even more challenging to trace the slave traders due to the thick fog. And if they encounter abyssal demons lurking on the forest's outskirts, well. She didn't believe those low-life slave trader could fend off such monsters. At the thought of the possible fate of her granddaughter, Aurora couldn't help but tremble all over. Years ago, she had already lost one granddaughter in the Winter Forest. Now, her son and daughter-in-law had been killed. She simply couldn't bear losing her last granddaughter. Absolutely not. She was tired of outliving her family. Then hurry up and send people to search that lawless area. I'm sorry, I have already sent someone to search, but there is still no news. Zumu's face was also filled with bitterness. When it came to his granddaughter, he was no less concerned than his wife. That child was their heart and soul. His son and daughter-in-law were gone, and their first granddaughter Zaire was gone too, and if Yuener had any mishap, he didn't want to live anymore. However, just as the couple were immersed in a sad atmosphere, a hastily arriving intelligence officer brought even worse news. My lord, in the south of Wind City, the members of the Divine Punishment sect have been scouted. Hearing this intel, it felt like a heavy boulder had dropped onto Zumu's heart, causing the old man to clench his fists tightly. What? The Divine Punishment sect? Those bastards who love to sacrifice living people to abyss demons. What the hell do those bastards want? The no man's land between the Wind City and the Winter Forest. Boom tilde asterisk. Accompanied by a thunderous explosion, a holy aura suddenly descended from the sky. The silver light that scattered in the air quickly converged on the silver-haired young girl's sword. After a flash of dazzling silver light, the massive centipede-like abyssal demon in front of the silver-haired girl was suddenly cut in half. After letting out a few last screams, this level 5 demon completely lost its life force and turned into 2 chunks of flesh, polluting the pristine snow. Looking at the abyssal demon that had already been dealt with in front of her, Menxi slowly dissipated the silver light that had gathered on the fine sword and sheathed it. Compared with other places, the demons near Winter Forest are indeed more powerful and violent. After several encounters with abyssal demons, that was her conclusion. Menxi frowned even more after coming to that conclusion. After all, the new generation of holy knights within the church found it challenging to defeat the demons in Red Leaf Empire. If they were to face abyssal demons in the northern frontier, they would probably die even faster. This made her feel very annoyed. I can't rely on them. I have to rely on myself. Her purple eyes narrowed slightly, a look of determination appearing in them. At this time, the several treasure hunters who had just been saved by her couldn't help but look excitedly at the female knight riding on a horse, wearing a pure white mask and exuding a heroic aura. They thought they would die for sure when they encountered the abyssal demon, but unexpectedly, they were saved by the other party at a critical moment. The joy of surviving the disaster filled the hearts of these treasure hunters. The holy knight who saved them and killed the abyssal demon was undoubtedly their benefactor. Menxi's image in their eyes became even bigger and more glorious, especially when they felt the unparalleled and friendly holy aura emanating around her body. The people's eyes burst with excitement and faith, even though they were not followers of the church. Then these people knelt down and kowtowed to express their gratitude. Thank you for saving our lives. Thank you. From now on, I am a believer of Asumo's church. There. Listening to the words of these treasure hunters like crazy fanatics, Menxi gradually felt a little uncomfortable. The holy aura that permeated her body, which was unique and known as the blessing of the goddess, would make the creatures around her unconsciously feel a fondness and dependence on her. The effect was even more obvious for those who were not strong enough. It was precisely because of this aura that Menxi was brought back to the church not long ago and gained tens of thousands of supporters. This ability was very convenient, but Menxi herself didn't like it. She always felt that it seemed to forcibly distort the will of others. Moreover, it also made Menxi unable to distinguish which people around her were genuinely good to her and which were influenced by the goddess's blessing. Excuse me, she warned the treasure hunters coldly, but don't come to this place again. The area around Winter Forest are not safe. If you don't want to die, stay away. After countless responses from these people, Menxi turned her horse's head and headed toward the church squad behind her. At the same time, another female knight in the church squad rode up to Menxi's side. After looking at the treasure hunters who were still bowing their heads, the female knight couldn't help but show a playful smile. It's no wonder that the goddess has blessed you, Captain. Even those heretics are bowing to you. It's hard to imagine. Then, as if thinking of something, a hint of excitement flashed in the female knight's eyes. No wonder Archbishop agreed to have you come to Wind City. When the people of Wind City are overwhelmed by the demons, you and Lady Bai Yanluo will appear again and surely turn them all into faithful followers. Is that so? Menxi replied calmly and didn't intend to say much to the other person. The female knight was already accustomed to Menxi's cold attitude and didn't feel upset about it. Instead, she continued to ride her horse to catch up to Menxi's side. By the way, Captain, before Lady Bai arrives to Wind City, you'd better not reveal your identity as the Girl of Destiny. Menxi's brows furrowed slightly upon hearing this. She hadn't intended to reveal her identity, as she found it troublesome, and disliked the fanatical gaze of those who lost themselves. But why? Archbishop Nick doesn't want them to know of my identity. Because there have been people from Divine Punishment sect in Wind City recently. Divine Punishment sect. Yes, those who believe in the demon lord and think that the abyssal demons represent the purification of the world by gods. They already oppose our church, and if they find out that you're the Girl of Destiny, they will definitely cause trouble. Although you are very strong, there are also many powerful people in Divine Punishment sect. Okay, I understand. Thank you for reminding me, Galena. Menxi nodded slightly. No problem, it's what I should do, replied the female knight with a slight smile. It seemed that Menxi's gratitude made her very happy as her face turned slightly red. However, just as Galena was about to continue talking to this lovely girl of destiny, a light cavalry who had just gone to scout in the distance returned and came directly to Menxi. Captain, we have found another group of horsemen near Galro's fortress in the northwest direction. Again, the abyssal demon could attack at any time. Are these guys not afraid of death? They should be staying in Wind City, but they love to run out at this time. Maybe they can't stay inside Wind City. What do you mean? I saw those people. They seem to be slave traders, the ones that Marquis is searching for. Really? What a coincidence. So, Miss Menxi, what should we do? Go catch those guys. Maybe we can make the Marquis own us a favor. At this moment, the silver-haired girl makes a decision that will affect her whole feature. At the same time, inside the winter forest near Galro's fortress, a 14-year-old little girl with pink hair, dressed in ragged clothes and covered in wounds, was struggling to move through the dead forest. Due to her thin clothes and walking in the snow, the little girl was already trembling from the cold. Her breathing became more and more heavy, and the constant loss of blood caused her vision to gradually blur. And behind her, several black figures were constantly chasing her. At this moment, the girl's face, which was already covered in blood, was filled with fear, helplessness, and despair. Undoubtedly, due to long periods of starvation and dehydration, cruel torture, and the piercing cold weather, the girl's body was on the brink of collapse. However, even in such a precarious physical condition, she still gritted her teeth, endured the intense pain from the cold and her wounds, and did her best to run forward. She knew very well that if she missed this opportunity, she might never be able to return to her family again. But as the black figures behind her approached, the light of hope in the girl's heart grew weaker and weaker. Grandpa, Grandma, help me. Ewander doesn't want to die. I just want to go home. The deep forest, the habitat of the monster wind chime bird, which was in a silent state, suddenly erupted with a miserable scream. And in the next moment, boom! Along with a thunderous roar like a mountain collapse and earth-shattering, the king of the wind chime bird tribe, also known as the Bird King, was suddenly hit by a beam of crimson light. Its imposing ultimate move was abruptly shattered by the red light. At the same time, the invincible light pierced through the Bird King's wings after shattering its protective magic, causing the giant bird monster with a wingspan of tens of meters to plummet from the sky and crash into a pile of rocks. After a moment, the huge rocks exploded and the Bird King, who was buried underneath, crawled out in a sorry state with blood flowing from its head. Although the Bird King suffered such a humiliating defeat in front of its people, it had no thought of revenge in its heart. Instead, it felt endless fear and trembling from deep within its soul as it looked at the black-haired girl who had just snapped her fingers to knock it down. Meeting the girl's scarlet eyes and feeling the familiar yet oppressive power of shadow that emanated from her body, the Bird King abandoned its dignity as the king of the tribe and scrambled like a puppy to crawl to the girl's feet. Its eyes had lost all fighting spirit and were filled with flattery. I'm sorry, Lady Yumo. I didn't know you had already turned into a human form. I thought it was some adventurer with no eyes who entered my territory just now. I'm very sorry, very sorry. Please spare me. I have old and young to take care of. Facing the Bird King's plea for mercy, Yumo couldn't help but roll her eyes, and her tone remained cold. Didn't I tell you before? If you see someone with a human form, don't randomly attack, you little brat bird. Did you forget my words? I'm sorry. I won't dare to do it again. If there's a next time, I'll find a new king for your wind chime tribe, Yumo said leisurely. However, her words contained an extremely powerful shadow force, which directly suppressed the Bird King, making it unable to move. After hearing Yumo's warning, the Bird King quickly nodded. No, there won't be a next time. That's better. Yumo's increasingly gentle smile disappeared as she restrained herself, lifting the oppressive force of the shadow of solitude from the Bird King and the rest of the wind chime birds. In an instant, the monster breathed a sigh of relief and lay down, relieved of their burden. After narrowly escaping death, the Bird King quickly got up and snuggled up to Yumo, eager to please her. Yumo-sama, my lady, what brings you to our humble place? I have something to discuss with you. Yumo chose to get straight to the point. Me? Yes, since I've taken human form, I can't just sleep rough in the wild anymore. Are you saying that you need our help to build a house? No, the house is already built. It's already built. Then what do we need to do? I'm missing a bed. I want one that's comfortable and soft. Yumo said, her dangerous gaze locking onto the Bird King's large, pristine white feathers. He suddenly felt a sense of dread, as if he knew what was coming. And I think your feathers are pretty nice, Tilda. Yumo cracked a sinister smile. There. A few minutes later, the once handsome Bird King was stripped of all his feathers by Yumo in front of a large crowd. He looked like a bald chicken and was particularly comical and embarrassed. The surrounding wind chime birds couldn't help but stifle their laughter. The seventh stage chime Bird King's dignity had been completely lost at this point. The Bird King clenched his claws tightly, and his eyes were full of anger and humiliation. But what could he do? To survive in the frigid forest, he had to submit to the abyssal demon and follow the orders of the demon temple. Otherwise, his entire tribe would become a meal for the abyssal demon. All he could do was suppress his anger and watch the black-haired girl slowly walk away, carrying his feathers. I'll get revenge on that girl someday. The Bird King stared fiercely at Yumo's back as she left. However, at that moment, he did not know that even though the girl had her back turned to him and was already far away, she could still feel the enmity and hatred in his gaze. Fortunately, Yumo did not have the same mindset. Or rather, making the Wind Chime Bird clan bear a great hostility toward her was the purpose of Yumo's words. Otherwise, she wouldn't bother to send a few abyssal demons to pressure the Wind Chime Bird clan from time to time. At the end of the trial, the protagonist's group needed to lead the army into the winter forest. To ensure everything went smoothly, Yumo believed it was necessary to arrange an inside man for the protagonist's group. Of course, an abyssal demon couldn't do this, so it had to be a group of persecuted demon beasts within the forest. These monsters not only detested abyssal demons, but also knew about their habits and the general location of the demon temple. They could lead the protagonist's group with legitimacy. Tilda. By then, it should be much easier to eliminate herself, right? Thinking of this, Yumo couldn't help but show a satisfied smile as the blood butterflies around her danced with joy. Oh well. Sometimes I really admire my own ingenuity. After a slight sigh, Yumo once again focused her attention on the large pile of feathers in her hand that had been compressed. Although she could cause trouble in the Wind Chime Bird tribe territory this time, she really needed these feathers, and she needed this many. In the past, when I hadn't taken on a human form, Limo, Liu, and the other girls rested inside my body. Inside the temple. Now that she had taken on human form, she needed to equip them with a new residence. She didn't like the idea of the children sleeping out in the open. With Sebastian's help, she had already built a countryside villa. Then, Yumo needed these feathers to make bedding for them, Tilda. Although Liu and the others always insisted on sleeping with her. Considering their independence, Yumo still planned to get each of them a comfortable bed, not just Limo and Liu, but also the children who were temporarily outside the forest Tilda. When they come back, they should have a place to sleep, right? She couldn't have them all squeezed in with her, could she? So, Yumo strolled through the forest as if taking a leisurely walk, enjoying the snowy scenery while pondering the room allocation in the new house. And at this moment, Yumo suddenly stopped in her tracks, her eyebrows slightly furrowed. The girl turned her head towards the south of the forest. Relying on her extraordinary perception, Yumo detected some special aura. Huh? Has someone come into the forest again? In the outermost region of the winter forest, a girl with pink hair and numerous wounds was desperately fleeing toward the depths of the forest. She didn't care about her bleeding wounds, weakening body, or the possibility of encountering an abyssal demon in front of her. The girl's only thought was to escape the pursuit of those behind her. She wanted to go home, with the strong will to survive, even if the direction she was heading was completely opposite to where her home was. She had no intention of stopping. However, as the effects of her mid-level magic spell, Spike Sprint, gradually dissipated, the girl's running speed began to decrease. The pursuers behind her were getting closer. Help, help, help me, please, anyone help me. The girl's heart was gradually covered with despair. As the pink-haired girl became more and more hopeless, the several pursuers behind her wearing brown, hooded coats became more and more anxious. As they gradually entered the winter forest, the atmosphere around them became heavier, and the elusive smell of blood stimulated their nostrils. They knew very well that the most terrifying existence on this continent inhabited this cold and silent forest. That was the Abyssal Demon. As they advanced deeper into the forest, the possibility of encountering an Abyssal Demon rapidly increased. With their strength, once they encounter an Abyssal Demon, they fear that they won't have a chance of survival. If they are unlucky enough to come across an existence above the 6th rank, they are all dead. No, we can't let this girl run any further. After realizing that the pink-haired girl had already entered his range, the black-haired man named Laplo couldn't help but bite his lip. His fierce gaze fixed on the girl, who was frantically running away in the distance. Watching the girl, Laplo's lower body began to ache. When he had attempted to make friendly contact with the young beauty before, this damn girl had taken advantage of his inattentiveness and attacked his lower body. This caused him to be in unbearable pain and made him lose face in front of his companions. He couldn't let this go without teaching her a lesson. I'll see where else you can run. After cursing in his heart, Laplo pulled out his magic long gun from his waist and aimed it at the distant pink figure. Hey, don't shoot, Yumo. After seeing Laplo's actions, a scar-faced man who was chasing alongside him immediately shouted, trying to stop Laplo. Unfortunately, it was too late. By the time the scar-faced man spoke, Laplo had already impatiently pulled the trigger, and the cruel fire burst out. Boom, tilde tilde. The tranquility of the nearby forest was suddenly shattered as the enchanted bullet, filled with magic, burst out of the blue-enveloped firearm. It accurately hit the back of the pink-haired girl and passed through her chest, causing a momentary burst of anger in her body. In an instant, the snow around the pink-haired girl turned red, and she lost the ability to continue running. Her pink acceleration circle suddenly disintegrated, and with a weak cry, she fell helplessly onto the snow below. Yay, I hit her. Laplo couldn't help but jump up and cheer. But before he could laugh for long, the scar-faced man rushed to his side and punched him in the head, then directly grabbed his neck, angrily asking, "You asterisk, why did you shoot?" I die. Laplo, who was directly grabbed by the neck, was at a loss, anxiously looking at the scar-faced man. "Big brother, I was just afraid that she would continue to escape inside. What if we encounter an abyss demon? We won't be able to. You directly shooting her with that damned gun, won't it attract the attention of the abyss demon?" Well, Laplo was at a loss for words. Seeing this, the scar-faced man, who was the leader of this chase team named Depro, became even more furious and slammed the disobedient and foolish little brother to a nearby giant tree. Furthermore, that girl is the one that the divine punishment sect wants. She alone is worth 3 million coins. If that girl is dead, I will chop you up and feed you to the dogs. This girl is the one the divine's punishment sect wants. Otherwise, if it wasn't for her, the Marquis wouldn't be chasing us. We wouldn't have to escape from the Windy City at this time. Upon hearing this, Laplo became even more uneasy, standing still in the snow after getting up from the ground, unsure of what to do. His actions once again caused Depro's displeasure. "You are a waste who is more trouble than it's worth. If it weren't for your inability to control your lower body, we wouldn't have had to work so hard to catch this girl. Let alone capture her, she might not even make it out alive now." After giving Laplo a glare filled with anger, Depro turned to the other henchmen nearby and said, "What are you waiting for? Go check if the girl is still alive. If she is, bring her back quickly. I hope the gunshots didn't attract any abyssal demons." Saying that, Depro jumped up and, with the help of his brown fighting spirit, quickly ran toward where the pink-haired girl had fallen. "Damn it, you damn mother F***. If you want to kill her, at least do it after helping me exchange her for 3 million coins." Depro kept shouting in his mind. Soon, with the help of his full-strength fighting aura, Depro arrived at the spot where the pink-haired girl had fallen. After breaking through the annoying bushes, Depro and the others finally found the valuable girl they were looking for. However, in the next moment, Depro and his men's eyes widened in disbelief as they looked ahead, because they had found an unexpected guest. At that moment, lying beside the pink-haired girl in the snow, was another young girl wearing an exquisite black robe and veil, with black and red gradient hair. As everyone looked at the breathtaking beauty of the young woman, their hearts started beating faster, and a strong greed began to surface in their eyes. Having been slave traders for many years, they could tell the value of this black-haired girl at a glance. If they could sell her on the black market, their profits would be even higher than the pink-haired girl's. It was a responsibility they couldn't pass up. The gunshots didn't attract any abyssal demons, but they had come across such a stunning beauty instead. This was too lucky. "Ha ha ha, we're going to be rich today," they thought excitedly in their minds, and the feeling of excitement took over their brains. They began to approach the black-haired girl step by step, just like a group of goblins surrounding their prey. It was disgusting. However, not everyone felt the same excitement in their hearts. At the moment when Depro saw this girl, he felt an immense weight in his heart, and a strong sense of fear began to spread in his mind. Wait, something's not right. How could there be someone here, and such a beautiful girl at that? In the middle of winter, dressed so thinly and barefoot, normal people would have died of cold by now. This is not right. Something is definitely wrong. After stopping his foolish companions from their behavior, Depro questioned the girl warily. "Who are you, and why are you here?" However, the girl did not respond, and just gave a quiet glance at the group. The next moment, to the slightly surprised gazes of Depro and the others, a butterfly covered in blood flew towards them. "This is this butterfly. Wow, what a beautiful girl." Laplo, who had finally caught up with his companion, couldn't help but be amazed when he saw the unknown black-haired girl. A certain indescribable desire began to burn in his heart like a raging fire, and in an instant, it turned into a wildfire. Laplo, who was already fond of women, found his desires amplified when he met the girl's eyes, which were as red as blood. His strong desires began to swallow his reason, causing Laplo and his fellow slave traders to overlook some visible anomalies. All they could think of was capturing the black-haired girl and selling her at a high price in the black market. Before that, they could play with her a little, right? Heh, pretty girl Tilda. Of course, they needed to be careful not to accidentally kill her, as they did with those previous elf girls. This girl was so beautiful, but she also seemed very fragile. I need to be careful with my strength, hee Tilda. Laplo couldn't help but show a lewd smile, putting away his firearm. After all, he believed that there was no need for weapons to deal with such a defenseless girl. However, just as Laplo was about to make a move, a blood-red butterfly with a red glow suddenly appeared in front of him, causing him to be taken aback. He stared at the butterfly in confusion. What? Why would there be a butterfly in the cold winter forest, and with such a color? Looking at the blood-red patterns and sheen on the butterfly, Laplo felt a strong sense of discomfort. A cold sweat formed on his forehead, but his inner desires quickly overshadowed his uneasiness. Instead of worrying about the strange butterfly, Laplo was more concerned with capturing the black-haired girl. Get out of my way. Laplo impatiently waved his hands, trying to drive away the bizarre butterfly. However, as he waved his hand, the butterfly landed on the back of his right hand. Seeing this, Laplo furrowed his brows and instinctively tried to shake it off. Wait, my hand! But before he could move his arm, an indescribable, intense pain suddenly spread from the back of his hand to his brain, accompanied by an unparalleled sense of terror. My hand. In the next instant, large amounts of magic power, life force, and soul energy began to be absorbed by the blood butterfly. Under Laplo's horrified gaze, the skin that made contact with the blood butterfly rapidly withered away. In just a split second, his arm turned into a dry, withered branch. Then, the energy from other parts of his body began to be uncontrollably absorbed by the blood butterfly as well. Laplo wanted to stop it, but he found himself completely paralyzed, unable to move at all. He could only watch helplessly as his body continued to wither. At this moment, all that remained in Laplo's mind was unprecedented fear. Why is this happening to me? In the end, with a desperate cry, Laplo's consciousness fell into the boundless darkness, and his body suddenly turned into a mummy, collapsing onto the snowy ground. But he wasn't alone. The slave traders who came into contact with the blood butterflies also had their energy taken away and died tragically in despair and pain. Only one person survived, the big brother of the slave traders, a high-ranking mercenary named Depro. Even though he was a sixth-stage master, touching these blood butterflies would certainly result in his gruesome death. At this moment, Depro noticed the black-haired girl not far away. In an instant, Depro's horror turned into endless hatred. He was astonished to discover that several blood-red butterflies were quietly fluttering around the girl, with a few even resting on her shoulders. Yet, the girl remained unharmed. It was evident that this girl was controlling these butterflies. It's you, you witch, you killed my brothers, I will make you pay. Realizing this, Depro was undoubtedly enraged. His longtime brothers were annihilated in such an inexplicable way. How could he bear this? After looking into the girl's crimson eyes, Depro's inner fury intensified. Combat skill, thunder tribulation double blades. A pale purple fighting energy suddenly erupted from his body, forming a solid armor of fighting energy. At the same time, the energy enveloped his dual blades, making them emit a chilling, cold light. Die! Thunder and lightning surged as Depro transformed into a purple light, charging toward the black-haired girl with the momentum of a thunderbolt, his blade aimed straight for her neck. However, just as Dupro was anticipating the girl's decapitation, the long, immobile black-haired girl tilted her head to the right. Her crimson eyes seemed to display a hint of curiosity. Curiosity, what the hell? Noticing the girl's expression, Dupro couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. However, before he could think further, the girl's palms suddenly enlarged in his view, moving at a speed that left him no time to react. Hey! After a brief cry of surprise, the girl's delicate hand intimately collided with Dupro's face. PA! With an unprecedented, earth-shattering slap, the raging thunder attribute fighting aura around Dupro, as well as his fighting energy armor, instantly crumbled into nothingness. Dupro's head spun a full 360 degrees with a horrified expression before finally parting ways with his neck. His consciousness sank into an endless darkness. In this manner, Dupro's head flew off, while his powerless body collapsed in front of the black-haired girl. Looking at the decapitated, scar-faced man before her, the black-haired girl, our protagonist Yumo, was dumbfounded for a moment. She gazed at her right hand, which had just sent Dupro's head flying, somewhat at a loss. Yumo's brow twitched slightly. Honestly, she wanted to keep the scar-faced man alive, as she needed to interrogate him for information, seeing that he seemed quite powerful. Yumo intended to use a little force to knock him out and subdue him. However, she didn't expect. Glancing at the scattered head several hundred meters away, Yumo playfully and awkwardly stuck out her tongue. I may have used a bit too much force. After looking at Dupro, who was killed by her slap, and the gruesome corpse, Yumo stared at her hands with great consternation. It seemed I might have overestimated the physical strength of a sixth-rank human. To think that just one slap would send the opponent's head flying. It seemed that I must control my strength in the future and not treat humans the same way I treated the abyssal demons. These creatures were just too fragile. The black-haired girl made a silent decision in her heart. Then, Yumo slowly turned around and looked at the pink-haired girl lying on the ground, who was already on the brink of death. Actually, in the past, numerous people would die in the winter forest each year, and Yumo would mostly not bother to intervene. She would let these people fend for themselves. In a certain sense, Yumo had already become numb to such incidents. This time she took action, partly because she was itching to test her own strength against these 5th and 6th rank humans, as well as her new body. And also for this girl. Slowly squatting down, Yumo quietly examined the dying girl in front of her. The power of shadow was slowly released from Yumo's body, gently enveloping the girl. After sensing for a moment, Yumo couldn't help but reveal a not unexpected smile. As I thought, it's a holy light physique. Holy light physique. It was a rare physique with a high affinity for holy power. The Asumo's church had been searching for talents with this kind of physique on the continent for many years. Nearly all known individuals with the holy light physique on the continent had become powerful forces within the Asumo's church, with one even becoming an apostle of heaven. Now, the strength of the younger generation on the continent was declining more and more. Anxious about this phenomenon, Yumo naturally did not want to let such talents die. So, she appeared here, intending to save the girl and send her to the Asumo's church in the future. Maybe she would become a powerful ally for the protagonist to help defeat her one day. However, it's a pity. After sensing the girl's injuries, Yumo couldn't help but shake her head helplessly. At this moment, the girl's spine had been shattered by a bullet, her internal organs were severely damaged, and the remaining energy from the bullet had even reached the girl's core, which could be understood as the important organ for mobilizing her magic power. It was obvious that the girl was seriously injured. Her life force and soul power were rapidly draining from her body, and she would undoubtedly die within a few minutes without intervention. Glancing at the girl's pale face, Yumo sighed regretfully. Then Yumo slowly stood up from the ground, ready to leave. "Sai, there's basically no hope of saving her when she's injured like this. At least, there was no conventional way." However, just as Yumo was about to leave, a weak voice full of pleading came slowly from the girl's mouth. "Save please, save me." Although the voice was faint, it did not escape Yumo's keen senses. Hearing this voice, Yumo couldn't help but show a slightly surprised expression, glancing at the pitiful girl lying on the snow, barely clinging to life. Oh, such a strong desire to survive. And she still had consciousness and could speak in this state. It seemed her willpower and soul strength were quite strong. Yumo raised an eyebrow slightly, a playful expression appearing on her beautiful face. Come to think of it, if I were to infuse the power of shadows into this girl's holy light physique, I wonder what would happen. It's quite interesting. She thought to herself that she should try it out. Yumo, feeling impulsive, turned around and crouched down in front of the girl with pink hair, touching her blood-stained face gently and speaking softly. "I can save you, but whether you can survive or not will depend on yourself. It will be quite painful during the process and will make you wish for death. Also, even if you survive, you will have to pay a very painful price. So do you want it?" As Yumo's words entered the pink-haired girl's ears, her lifeless blue eyes seemed to refocus, and a glimmer appeared. Yumo's words undoubtedly gave the girl a glimmer of hope, and in order to seize that hope, she mustered up the last of her strength and spoke. "As long as I can survive, I'm willing." The girl's voice became weaker and weaker, and without a doubt, her body had reached its limit, with death beckoning from across the river. "Well, since you're willing, then okay." Yumo smiled slightly. "I'll try to save you." Then the black-haired girl slowly raised her hand, and a horrifying red light suddenly appeared around her body, gathering and condensing into an energy blade. In the next moment, with a flash of red light, the energy blade passed through Yumo's fingertips, and a little crimson blood slowly overflowed from her fingertip. This was not ordinary blood, but a concentrated form of Yumo's origin blood, far surpassing the crystalline form she had made before. If the function of the crystalline form was to create a small demon, then the function of the origin blood was to create a powerful demon. Like the Abyssal Demon of Demon King class. At this point, facing the severe injury of the pink-haired girl in front of her, only the extremely strong power of the shadow could save her. But in her current state, with her own power completely exhausted, once she came into contact with the shadow power, she would turn into a mindless abyssal demon. Even if she survived, it would be no different from being dead. Therefore, if she wanted to retain her consciousness, this girl had to break through on her own and reach the Demon King stage. After all, only an abyssal demon of this level could possess rationality and retain most of their original character. Only then could she be considered as having survived. As for whether she could successfully break through, it was up to her own destiny. After the breakthrough, what would happen to her holy light physique? Yumo wasn't sure. Anyway, she just wanted to give it a try. Whether you can succeed or not, it's up to you. Slowly, the bright red blood flowed down and dripped directly into the mouth of the pink-haired girl. As Yumo's original essence blood entered her body, waves of wonderful crimson shadow power began to ripple throughout her body, and the girl's consciousness was completely immersed in boundless darkness. With the surge of power, the surrounding space began to twist and distort. Under Yumo's control, the red light scattered and gradually turned into a red crystal that enveloped the girl, forming a cocoon of rich and powerful red energy. Inside this cocoon, the pink-haired girl would absorb Yumo's power and will be reborn. However, the extent of this rebirth depended on the girl's own fate. Would she become an irrational, ordinary abyssal demon or a legendary figure like Demon King? It's up to your fate. Yumo chuckled. Then she snapped her fingers, and with several strange cries, a huge monster bird resembling a vulture and emitting black smoke suddenly descended from the sky and landed next to her. Following Yumo's gesture, this giant abyssal demon picked up the cocoon of red energy and flew towards the distant mountains and forests. After watching the vulture disappear, Yumo turned her head to the snowy ground and, in the next moment, a black mist-strapped abyssal demon suddenly crawled up to her, like a mole, and respectfully knelt down by her side. This abyssal demon was the one that Yumo had sent out to investigate the external situation. Slowly, Yumo reached out and stroked the head of the fifth-level abyssal demon. The scene it had just seen flowed into Yumo's mind, along with the flow of shadow power. In an instant, a playful glint appeared in the black-haired girl's eyes, and she looked thoughtfully toward the south. What? The slave caravan and the Night Order are fighting in a place like this? She exclaimed in surprise. And the emblem on their clothes is Asumo's church, within the forbidden zone between Galro's fortress and the Great Winter Forest. Where the hell did that bastard Depro run off to? Damn it! Hurry up and come back, you son of $. After narrowly evading an onslaught from a silver-armored warrior's warhammer, Captain Sakurai of the Shadow Mercenaries cursed inwardly with frustration. Just then, a deep crimson magic array suddenly materialized behind this sixth-level powerhouse. Suddenly, a colossal fireball came hurtling towards him, causing Sakurai's eyes to narrow sharply. His scar-ridden, furious face grew even more ferocious due to the ambush. However, being a seasoned veteran of countless battles, Sakurai quickly adjusted his posture, evading the bombarding fireball and hurling his spear into the air. In an instant, a surge of black light erupted. The spear, enveloped in dark attribute aura, slashed through the starry sky, piercing the shoulder of a distant spellcaster. It directly disabled the combat prowess of the fifth-level mage. And with the long-range threat eliminated, Sakurai visibly regained his composure in battle. But even so, his expression remained incredibly grave. At this moment, his shadow mercenaries, whom he led on this mission to assist in smuggling slaves, had suffered severe damages, and their fighting strength had been reduced to only himself and a few elite members. Almost all of the other members were slain by the knights before his eyes. Gazing at dozens of knights dressed in exquisite silver armor and crimson capes, Sakurai's eyes brimmed with resentment, wishing to dismantle each and every one of them. Otherwise, his burning hatred would be difficult to quell. A well-executed mission. Almost on the verge of completion, he was about to hand over the slaves to the Divine Punishment Sect. Soon, he would receive 8 million star coins. Yet, he unexpectedly encountered these damn Asumo's church knights at this critical juncture. Damn it! Aren't those bastards not on good terms with the Snow Knight Empire? Why are they appearing near the fortress, you bastards? Sakurai cursed inwardly with frustration, while occasionally casting puzzled glances toward the nearby Great Winter Forest. Several minutes ago, he had dispatched a team to chase after that fleeing girl. She was just a normal person of the third rank, for God's sake. Why haven't they caught her yet after all this time? Depro, what the hell are you up to? Sakurai grew increasingly anxious. If those people didn't come back to support him, he might truly be captured by these inexperienced church knights. However, just as he glanced momentarily at the Great Winter Forest, mocking words suddenly resounded in his ears. Oh, so you still have time to look elsewhere. What? Who? In an instant, Sakurai's eyes narrowed sharply. A strong sense of danger surged through his heart as he incredulously turned his head to look at the brown-haired female knight who appeared behind him. And in that moment of resentment, as he gazed at the female knight, a purple-flamed sword, burning with intensity, impaled Sakurai's chest from behind, directly piercing through his heart. Damn it! In a feeble curse, Sakurai, whose blade had tasted blood for decades, ultimately perished in this mission of transporting slaves. His death marked the complete destruction of the Shadow Mercenaries. Finally resolved, after the purple flames dissipated from her sword, Galena let out a sigh of relief. It wasn't easy for them to overcome a sixth-level powerhouse besieging them. Then, Galena turned slowly and looked towards the other battlefields behind her. With Sakurai's demise, the remaining members of the stubborn Shadow Mercenaries raised their hands in a gesture of surrender. Undoubtedly, the battle had come to an end. With a slight smile, Galena looked towards the burly man wielding a giant axe and shouted, "Kakalo!" What's the matter, Sister Galena?" The burly man known as Kakalo quickly leaped up and stood before Galena, while Galena pointed to the dozens of young boys and girls confined in the carriages nearby. "Tidy up the battlefield and, by the way, help those poor kids with their injuries." "All right, understood. I'll go call the priests." "Yes, oh, one more thing." Just as the burly man was about to leave, he stopped in his tracks and looked at Galena in confusion. "What's the matter, Sister Galena? Is there something else you need to command?" Upon hearing this, Galena furrowed her brow thoughtfully and looked towards the nearby snowy plains and the great winter forest not far away. With her keen senses, or perhaps it was a woman's intuition, in the midst of battling these ruthless mercenaries, she always had a strange feeling, as if something nearby was watching her. It made Galena extremely uncomfortable, and that inexplicable chilliness kept her on edge until now. "Kakalo, have you, by any chance, felt any strange gazes around us?" Hearing her words, the burly man Kakalo looked perplexed and glanced awkwardly at their surroundings. Then he shook his head, helpless. "No, I don't feel anything. Everything seems normal, right?" Really? Then what about the reconnaissance team on alert nearby? Any news? Have they seen any demons or abyssal creatures?" "They shouldn't have. If they spotted any abyssal creatures, they would have reported it by now." "Well, I guess so. Could it be my imagination? Perhaps because I've been too tired lately." Galena pondered in her mind as she closed her eyes and shook her head. But at that moment, Kakalo's exclamation interrupted Galena's thoughts, causing her to curiously look up. "What's wrong?" "There's a girl. She seems like an ordinary person. She ran out of the great winter forest." Kakalo pointed towards the distant forest, sounding incredulous. Hearing this, Galena was also taken aback. She followed Kakalo's hand and looked in the same direction. And in the next instant, Galena couldn't help but reveal an expression of disbelief. Reflected in her eyes was a girl with disheveled pink hair, wearing tattered clothes, just as Kakalo had described, running out of the great winter forest towards their location. "Wait, really? Oh my God, what's with that child? How did she come out of the great winter forest alone? No, something's not right. Why would a young girl come to such a dangerous place?" Galena questioned. "The clothing, isn't it similar to the slaves on the carriage?" Kakalo remarked. "Slaves? Is she an escaped slave?" "Seems like it. Didn't Sakurai say that some members of their team went into the forest to capture people? It should be her, right? But why is she the only one running away? What about the people pursuing her?" "I'm not sure. Let's ask her when she gets here." "All right." As they watched the fragile figure stumbling and running with all her might from a distance, Galena's compassion grew. After a brief exchange, she hurriedly joined Kakalo and several other Asumo's knights to go help the poor girl. However, as Galena and the others were about to make contact with the girl, she noticed something unusual, the expression on the girl's face. It wasn't the look one would have upon seeing a savior. Instead, it was filled with endless fear. She anxiously looked behind her from time to time, as if avoiding something terrible. No, something's not right. A sense of foreboding suddenly rushed into Galena's mind. And at that very moment, as if to confirm Galena's intuition, an overwhelming oppressive force burst out of the forest. Like a violent gust of wind, it instantly assaulted Galena and the other Asumo's knights, carrying a chilling silence, a dense aura of murderous intent, and a nauseating smell of blood. Everyone's faces turned pale, and cold sweat trickled down their foreheads. In the next moment, the earth shook. Roar! Amidst the earth-shattering and terrifying roar, several gigantic bipedal monsters, engulfed in raging hellfire, emerged from the great winter forest. With an imposing aura, they roared and charged toward them. In the instant they saw these demons, everyone held their breath, experiencing an unprecedented sense of horror. Abyssal creatures. This is bad, really bad. Quick retreat now, roarer. With 6-meter-high horns on its head and standing on 2 feet, the abyss demon emanated a dense hellfire and roared with hostility toward the group of Asumo's knights. The earth-shattering roar caused the group to lose their courage and their souls to waver. Under Galena's command, the squad hastily retreated. Their small team was powerless against the 5 mid-tier, 5th-ranked abyss demons. Retreat was their only choice. However, would these bloodthirsty demons with strong fighting spirits let their prey escape so easily? They charged at the group with an echoing roar. The Asumo's knights who came to the aid of the pink-haired girl were also around the 5th rank, but the physical prowess of the abyss demons far exceeded that of humans of the same rank. Moreover, after battling the mercenary corps, Galena and the others were already physically drained. Under such conditions, how could they possibly outrun the abyss demons? In just a blink of an eye, the abyss demon roared and appeared before them. Faced with the terrifying sharp fangs and claws, as well as the blood-red eyes that chilled one's soul, the fear deep within the hearts of the knights was triggered. Their relentless grip on their weapons began to tremble, and cold sweat dripped from their foreheads. Although these knights had participated in encirclement operations against abyss demons, they had only faced solitary demons. This was their first time being surrounded by multiple demons at once. As warriors taking their first trial in the northern borderlands, they had no experience. Moreover, the northern border demons were stronger than those they had hunted down due to their proximity to the demon temple. Overwhelming pressure attacked them from all directions, causing the Asumo's knights to experience an indescribable suffocating feeling. Under the stimulation of fear, Kakalo let out a hysterical roar. "Damn abyss demon, don't come any closer." With his roaring voice, the blue holy energy suddenly erupted from Kakalo's body and converged on his twin axes. All of his physical enhancement magic activated in an instant. Kakalo's robust figure was immediately enveloped by the magical aura. His momentum began to rise rapidly. The fear in the eyes of the burly man seemed to be suppressed by the increase in his own power. Combat skill beheading slash. As he yelled out his technique, Kakalo leaped into the air. Under the watchful eyes of the Asumo's knights, he aimed his axe at the abyss demon's head. However, reality was always cruel. No matter how strong one's momentum is, it couldn't change the huge gap in strength. And at the next moment, as everyone stared in disbelief, the abyss demon suddenly raised its hand and effortlessly shattered Kakalo's defensive magic with a slap, sending him crashing to the ground. Before Kakalo could stand up in frustration, the abyss demon stomped on him. In an instant, blood and flesh splattered everywhere, organs flew through the air, and the burly knight was reduced to a puddle of gore. Kakaluo! Galena couldn't help but let out a sorrowful roar. The fear in her eyes was magnified at this moment, and the other Asumo's knights felt the same way. If even Kakalo ended up like this, what fate awaited them, whose strength was inferior to his? They couldn't even grip their weapons tightly due to trembling. Facing the Abyss Demon, this was undoubtedly lethal. Even trembling to the point of being unable to grip their weapons tightly, the knights knew that facing the Abyssal Demon would undoubtedly be deadly. In the next moment, under the horrified gazes of everyone, the ferocious attack of the Abyssal Demon suddenly descended upon them. For a time, an atmosphere of despair permeated this small band of knights. However, there was one exception. That was the pink-haired girl who was saved by Galena and now shielded behind her. There wasn't even a trace of fear in the girl's eyes. All she had in them was a deep sense of disappointment. Is this their level? Undoubtedly, the girl was very dissatisfied with the performance of these Asumo's church knights. Extremely dissatisfied. A few minutes earlier, deep within the winter forest, having seen the battle between the two forces outside the forest through the video on the crystal from the Abyssal Demon, Yumo couldn't help but reveal a playful expression, her curiosity bubbling up inside her. Because, to her surprise, she found that one of the battling parties was actually the knights from the Asumo's church. You see, according to the script, the Asumo's church was one of the most powerful forces against the Abyssal Demons, and after the heroine joined the church, it would also become her aid in destroying herself. Thus, Yumo always wanted to get a good understanding of the strength of the Asumo's church, both at the grassroots and the upper echelons. The fact that Li Mo and Li Yu wiped out the hero squad previously had deprived her of the opportunity to test, which was somewhat regrettable. Now that the opportunity had come knocking again, how could Yumo be willing to let it go? A slightly chilling smile appeared on her face. She wanted to observe closely, to personally observe these knights battle up close. Additionally, if possible, she wanted to blend into the nearby town to see for herself, as she had always been curious about the living conditions of the people in the city since she arrived in this Anseta continent. But being unable to move, she could only stay helplessly in the winter forest. Now that she finally had a body, she might as well take the opportunity to venture into the city. According to Sebastian, one must have a legal identity to enter the border cities of the Northern Territory, or they would face strict scrutiny by the guard force. However, if it were slaves or the like, the scrutiny wouldn't be as stringent. With that thought in mind, Yumo let out a cold chuckle, her gaze seemingly thoughtful as she looked in the direction the pink-haired girl had left earlier. I'll borrow your appearance for a bit. The next moment, a wave of red, shadowy energy slowly rippled around Yumo, and the red light enveloped her entire body. When the red light dissipated, Yumo's appearance had changed drastically. Her black and red gradient hair had turned into acute pink, her crimson eyes gradually changed into sapphire blue, and her height had slightly decreased. She had transformed into the likeness of the adorable pink-haired girl, almost identical in appearance. Of course, there were still some subtle differences, but blending in shouldn't be a problem. After examining her current appearance through the reflection in the Abyssal Demon's eyes, Yumo nodded with satisfaction. With this, it should be quite easy to deceive them. At that time, she would boldly mix into the slave group and be taken back to the city by the knights, a completely logical development. This plan was just perfect. Yumo stood with her hands on her hips, a proud and smug smile gracing her face. As she laughed, several abyssal beasts, who were prepared to put on a show, poked their heads out from the woods. After all, Yumo had to come up with a good explanation for why the mercenaries that were chasing her were defeated. Being dealt with by the abyssal beasts in the great winter forest, that should be a more than a fitting excuse, right? Yes. Back to the present. Watching the nearby knights being taken down one by one, Yumo, now disguised as the pink-haired girl, couldn't help but pout in dissatisfaction. Her eyes twitched with irritation. This. How? How? How could they be so weak? They're so weak that it's infuriating. Yumo felt like crying but couldn't find the tears. She had already taken into account that these Asumo's knights might have already used up much of their strength. So, she sent out the weakest and most reckless of the Tier 5 abyssal beasts, the Minotaurs, and she only sent out 5 of them. Why can't you even beat these? Are you kidding me? She just wanted the Minotaurs to be targeted, so she could observe what kind of skills the Asumo's knights used. But how? How could they almost wipe them all out? Were they really that weak? As Yumo watched the female knight in front of her, about to be crushed by an abyssal beast's fist, she couldn't help but feel extremely disappointed, even wanting to cry. Deep down, she was filled with regret. She suddenly realized she might have overestimated these people. She originally hoped that after these knights had eliminated the 4 abyssal beasts, they would save her and take her to the nearest city. But now it seemed that they might not even survive, let alone take her anywhere. Should I have the abyssal beasts go easy on them? Yumo couldn't help but exchange a subtle glance with the Minotaur closest to her. Hey, use less force, got it. However, the very next moment, Yumo's small gesture came to an abrupt halt. An inexplicably familiar aura suddenly entered her perception. What? This aura. Just as Yumo was about to have her abyssal beasts take it easy, a dazzling silver figure suddenly burst into her field of vision like a swift bolt of lightning, interrupting her thoughts. This caused the abyssal beast master's pupils to shake, her cherry lips slightly parted, revealing an incredulous expression. Wait, this girl, no. No. Why did we encounter such a monster? My life can't end just like this. Looking at her several comrades who had already perished miserably, the scattered limbs and remains on the ground, and the vicious beast before her, Galena's body shook uncontrollably. Even gripping her sword tightly was a struggle. Facing the impending death, Galena finally understood the warnings of the veteran knights. Compared to the ordinary abyssal beasts they had faced on previous missions, the abyssal beasts in the Northern Territory were the true abyssal beasts. Although she knew that the Temple of Demons would amplify the power of abyssal beasts, she never anticipated that the enhancement would be so terrifying. No wonder every previous crusade ended in failure. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. As the devastating punch approached, Galena felt great despair in her heart. With her holy power nearly exhausted, she had no strength to resist such a powerful attack from the abyssal beast. Deep down, she knew that if she was hit, she would meet the same fate as Kakalo and become another pile of rotten flesh on the plain. Fear and despair turned into shackles that bound Galena tightly in place, leaving her unable to move, let alone dodge the attack. The dark cloud of despair enveloped the female knight, and she couldn't help but close her eyes. Resigned, she prepared to wait for the Reaper to claim her soul. However, just as the abyssal demon's punch was about to strike Galena's head, a familiar, gentle, and utterly reliable voice suddenly rang in her ear. Get down, Galena. This voice. Menxi. Captain. Upon hearing the melodious and beautiful voice like a silver bell, Galena's body shivered, and a surge of ecstatic joy erupted uncontrollably, instantly occupying her heart. The sudden words from the young girl were like the rays of the scorching sun, dispelling the despair in Galena's heart. They brought hope of life. In the midst of battle, getting down like that was undoubtedly an insulting act for a knight. But after hearing the instruction from the silver-haired girl, Galena chose to obey without hesitation. With the chains of fear that bound her actions torn apart, Galena's movement was exceptionally fluid. She got down directly, even pulling down the slightly dazed pink-haired girl behind her, both lying in the snow. The abyssal beast's punch, blazing with the eerie flames of hell, swept just over their heads. The scorching heat and terrifying oppression brought immense pain to Galena, but she survived. At the same time, a silver light suddenly broke into the demon's field of vision. As the silver light faded, a silver-haired girl wielding a long sword, wearing a white dress armor, and a white mask appeared before the abyssal beast. The moment the girl appeared, and the extraordinary holy power emanating from her was felt, the abyssal demon ferocity was suddenly ignited, and the killing intent in its crimson eyes erupted endlessly. In the next moment, the monstrous abyss demon unleashed a blood-curdling roar, filled with murderous intent, toward the silver-haired girl. RAAWR. Its fist, burning with the flames of hell, shot out once again. With an earth-shattering force, it charged toward the girl. In response, the silver-haired girl's lavender eyes narrowed slightly, and a dense, silvery-white light gathered around her sword. In an instant, under the astonished gazes of onlookers, the silver-haired girl fearlessly faced the abyss demon's powerful punch. Shua tilde tilde. With a flurry of sword light and the sound of blood splattering, the arm wrapped in sinister black flames separated from the demon's body, crashing heavily onto the snow-covered ground. The demon's bull-like head wobbled for a moment before falling softly onto the snowy ground. Just like that, the abyss demon that was wreaking havoc moments ago had casually become a headless corpse. Meanwhile, the other 4 abyss demons, who had been attacking the other knights, couldn't help but focus their attention on the silver-haired girl upon sensing her presence. When they saw her unleashing her power and killing their companion, the remaining demons immediately abandoned their original targets and, baring their fangs, rushed toward the silver-haired girl. However, faced with the attacks of 4 middle-tier, 5th-rank abyss demons, the silver-haired girl maintained her composure. A subtle sense of battle intent and bloodlust emerged in her lavender eyes. A dazzling silver light flickered around her again. Accompanied by a ripple of spatial power, 4 longswords emitting a sacred silver light suddenly floated around the girl. The cold glint of the silver blades was unmistakable. At the same time, countless silver chains broke through the snow, attacking the 4 abyss demons from all directions. Caught off guard, they bound the demons' bodies, eliciting angry roars from them. The demons' muscles swelled with the surge of dark power, and the chains binding them began to shatter. Undoubtedly, it was an unrealistic dream for the silver-haired girl, with her middle 5th strength, to forcibly bind 4 abyss demons of the same rank. However, her goal was not to bind them but to attract their attention with the chains. Just as the 4 demons were struggling to break free from the chains, the girl pressed her hands together. A golden light gently shimmered in her eyes. The 4 silver longswords, wrapped in silvery white power, transformed into silver energy arrows that could pierce the stars. In the next moment, silver light flickered. The 4 silver longswords shot toward the 4 abyss demons like unleashed beasts, accompanied by an indescribable sense of oppression. It didn't come from the holy power but from something deeper. Sensing the imminent danger, the abyss demons couldn't help but raise their heads, ceasing their attempts to tear apart the chains. They looked toward the silver-haired girl in the distance, and as they looked up, they faced the silver longswords flying straight toward them. Poo tilde tilde. With a splatter of blood, the 4 longswords accurately pierced the heads of the abyss demons. The black flames of hell burning around the demons suddenly dissipated. Along with the dissipation, the revolting dark aura of the demons, as well as their life force, vanished. Boom tilde. With a loud crash, the 4 abyss demons fell lifelessly onto the snow-covered ground. Their nauseating black blood stained the surrounding pristine land. At that moment, the nearby knights of the Asumo's church and the rescued slaves burst into earth-shaking cheers. The exhilarating roars echoed across the plains. The elation of survival left everyone in a state of emotional turmoil that lasted for quite some time. Everyone directed their admiring gazes toward the valiant silver-haired girl. Yet in the face of the increasingly impassioned cheers, the silver-haired girl remained indifferent. She waved her hands symbolically to quiet the crowd, then turned her attention to the female knight, Galena, who was standing nearby. "Did you get hurt?" The girl's voice was filled with concern. Upon hearing this, Galena, who was kneeling on the ground, couldn't help but burst into tears. Her long, tense heart instantly relaxed, and she suddenly threw her arms around the silver-haired girl's waist. "Wah, Captain, you finally came. I thought I would never see the sun again. Wah." There, it's okay now, don't cry." Menxi patted Garona's head and comforted her softly. Meanwhile, Menxi's gaze gradually locked onto the pink-haired slave girl standing up behind Galena. The moment she saw the pink-haired girl, as if sensing something or making a judgment, Menxi's eyes suddenly turned icy cold. Her murderous gaze made the pink-haired girl shiver. In the next moment, under the bewildered gaze of the pink-haired girl, Menxi's lavender eyes narrowed slightly. With the puzzled stares of the Asumo's church knights, she raised her silver longsword, pointing it directly at the pink-haired girl's forehead. What exactly are you?" The pink-haired girl, upon seeing the silver-haired girl wearing a white mask, Yumo shivered all over. An indescribable feeling of unease emerged in her heart, causing her to press a hand against her chest and bite her lip hard. Ever since merging with the demon temple, this was the first time Yumo felt such an inexplicable soul-shivering sensation. Despite the girl's mere 5th-rank strength, she exuded a baffling pressure that unsettled Yumo. This stirred a strange sensation within her. Did the girl harbor something threatening to her? That might explain her peculiar feeling. According to the trial mission, the ultimate destruction of the demon temple relied on the holy power within the female protagonist. This power was the natural enemy of the abyss demons and the nemesis of the dark power. It could pose a great threat to the abyss demons and her own true form. A 5th rank who could make her feel a sense of crisis. What else could it be, other than this holy spiritual power? At the same time, this girl had an unprecedented affinity for holy magic, higher than any follower of the Asumo's church she had ever seen. The heroine. Yumo quickly reached this conclusion in her heart. She didn't even need to remove the girl's clothes to check for golden runes on her back. Of course, it was nearly impossible to undress her at the moment, considering her current state as a defenseless slave girl. How could she possibly defeat a 5th-rank female protagonist? The heroine. Heroine tilde. I finally encountered her, tilde. The moment she realized the girl's identity, Yumo couldn't help but let out a few exciting chuckle deep inside. Suppressing the discomfort within her heart, the corner of her mouth subtly lifted in a smirk. Upon meeting the long-awaited female protagonist, Yumo was overjoyed. Moreover, after witnessing her incredible strength, Yumo was even more ecstatic. Despite only possessing mid-5th rank strength, she could instantly kill 5 abyss demons of the same rank. Such an achievement was almost inconceivable. It was rare for someone to defeat an abyss demon of equal rank one-on-one. Yet the heroine managed to defeat 5 at once. How amazing was that? It seemed she could even defeat a 6th rank abyss demon. Truly worthy of being the chosen one, her strength did not disappoint me. In that case, if she continued to progress at this rate, she might actually be able to kill me. By the way, her name is Menxi, right? What a lovely name, Tilda. Also, she's very gentle, Tilda. Watching the silver-haired girl caressing Galina's head and softly comforting her teammate, Yumo felt increasingly reassured. After all, beauty, strength, and gentleness were the 3 traits Yumo had always expected from the female protagonist over the centuries. Strong and gentle, check. As for beauty, her figure was incomparable. Unlike Yumo's flat chest, the female protagonist seemed to be quite well endowed. Not too big, not too small, just perfect, Tilda. However, as for her face, sneaking a few glances at the silver-haired girl's pure white mask, Yumo puckered her lips in slight disappointment. Really, why wear a mask? Yumo was not very happy, unable to appreciate the heroine's face, which left her feeling disappointed. However, when she saw those clear, bright, and dazzling light purple eyes that resembled a galaxy of stars, Yumo's little heart began to race. Those eyes were the most beautiful she had ever seen, more brilliant and captivating than diamonds. Unlike her own slightly sinister blood-red eyes, the heroine's eyes were not only beautiful, but also filled with an indescribable sense of sacredness, causing Yumo to become entranced. It wasn't until a moment later that she snapped out of it. I actually got to see the heroine, this mission, such a bargain. Well then, since I had seen her, why not try to get closer and build a relationship? Of course, she wasn't interested in the protagonist's body. She just wanted to understand every aspect of the protagonist, including her personality, hobbies, habits, and fighting style. After all, this information would be useful when preparing trials for her in the future. With that in mind, Yumo, disguised as a pink-haired girl, slowly stood up, wanting to take the opportunity to express her gratitude and get closer to the stunning silver-haired girl. The protagonist seemed so gentle, right? She should treat her like a poor, pitiful little slave, right? However, reality seemed a bit different from what Yumo had imagined. As Yumo stood up, Menxi noticed the pink-haired girl behind Galina. But instead of treating the pink-haired girl gently as Yumo had expected, a sudden murderous intent burst from her eyes. In the next instant, astonished Yumo found herself choked by Menxi, who pushed her down into the snow without a word. What are you?" There was no trace of gentleness in her voice, only unmatched coldness and strong suspicion. What, how could this happen? Obviously, Yumo hadn't expected this. Looking at the delicate hand around her neck and the cold light purple eyes staring at her, Yumo was dumbfounded. She couldn't quite figure out what had just happened. Why did the protagonist suddenly attack her? She clearly hadn't done anything. Could it be that her identity had been exposed? No, that couldn't be right. There was no reason for it. Although the protagonist was strong, at this stage, she shouldn't be able to see through Yumo's disguise. She had made sure it was perfect. Yumo was utterly confused. At this moment, under the influence of sympathy, Galina behind Menxi couldn't bear to stand up any longer. She hurried over and tried to pull Menxi's hand away. Captain, what are you doing? Why are you suddenly treating a child like this?" Galina's words were also filled with confusion. She couldn't understand why the usually gentle girl would suddenly attack a slave girl. To her companion's confusion, Mengsi glanced back and spoke indifferently. A slave girl facing an abyssal demon so calmly. There's not even a hint of fear. Something's off. And the aftershocks of the previous battle seem to have had no effect on her. That's not the reaction of a delicate girl. Is she some creature disguised as a human? Could it be the captured mercenary said she was the runaway slave? Her aura is indeed human, right? Maybe she's just too terrified. Galena couldn't help but feel puzzled too. Hearing this, Menxi's eyebrows knitted together. Even so, the abyssal demon was chasing after her before, right? It was clearly trying to kill her. How could a weak slave girl outrun an abyssal demon? And after encountering you guys, the demon stopped attacking her and started attacking you. This, Mengxi, what do you mean? Even if she isn't disguised as a human, she could very well be infected with the power of the shadow. If that's the case. As she spoke, Mengxi couldn't help but tighten her grip on the silver sword in her hand. The cold, murderous intent suddenly emanated from her eyes. Seeing this, Yumo felt a chill running down her spine. Although the female lead was quite clever, and not the kind of foolishly sweet girl that Yumo was relieved about, but if she really attacked her with a sword, wouldn't she be exposed? There would be no more observation after that. I had finally met the female lead. I couldn't just go back empty-handed like this. Yumo shouted in her heart. And so, the acting Yumo slowly showed a puzzled expression on her face, as if she just realized what was happening. After seeing the silver-haired girl in front of her, the emotions in Yumo's azure eyes gradually changed from confusion to shock. Then from shock to fear. At this moment, Yumo perfectly portrayed herself as a timid slave girl. No, no, don't kill me, I'm not infected, sob, sob, sob. Of course, all Yumo could do now was to act well and try to shed a few tears, hoping to convince the other party that she was just an innocent, pitiful girl. Escaping from the demon's clutches was purely a coincidence. Coincidence, do you understand? Yumo's pitiful appearance made Galena beside her show a distressed look. Mengxi, don't do this. You'll scare her. She doesn't look like she's infected. However, Yumo's watery eyes and crystal tears rolling down her cheeks did not evoke Mengxi's compassion. The silver-haired girl's eyes were still filled with caution and suspicion. In Mengxi's eyes, the pink-haired girl in front of her might have already been infected by the power of the shadow. This risk must be eliminated, otherwise it would endanger the entire team. We'll know if she's infected or not after checking her body thoroughly. Check her body, Galena was taken aback. If infected by the power of the shadow, there will be wounds on her body. Mengxi's beautiful pale purple eyes narrowed slightly at this moment. Yumo, on the other hand, felt an ominous premonition as the corner of her eye twitched uncontrollably. What the hell? Check my body. Hey, what are you trying to do? I'm the final boss. Hey, I'm warning you not to mess around. The shadow force contained within the claws of the abyssal demons is an unparalleled poison for most beings. Once injured by it, without timely treatment of the wound, the victim is very likely to become infected and eventually transform into a bloodthirsty, brutal monster devoid of humanity. This infection process is usually very rapid, often turning an ordinary person into an abyssal demon within 5 minutes. Of course, there are some exceptions. Some people with special physiques may have the shadow energy lurking within their bodies after being infected. Instead of turning into an abyssal demon quickly, they become ticking time bombs that could explode at any moment. If these people were to enter a city and suddenly transform into an abyssal demon in a crowded area, the consequences would be incalculable. As a result, whether it's the knights of the church or the soldiers of other empires, after defeating abyssal demons, All participating warriors must undergo a full body examination to check for any signs of infection. At present, for this seemingly fragile, pink-haired girl who escaped from the forest, Menxi inevitably suspects that she has been infected. How could an ordinary third-rank girl escape the pursuit of an abyssal demon unless she had briefly acquired extraordinary physical abilities due to the infection by the shadow energy? Do you think the abyssal demon was just playing house with her? Therefore, Menxi believes that a thorough examination is needed for the girl. If there are any wounds, timely treatment might still save her. However, if the infection is already severe, Menxi will not hesitate to grant her a swift end. Additionally, at the moment when she first made eye contact with the girl, Menxi clearly felt an unusual sensation. Though it was fleeting, it put Menxi on high alert. And so, at this moment, Menxi, whose subconscious mind had already decided that the girl was infected, disregarded the girl's feelings and directly pulled down her coat. Next, Menxi even tore away the thin and ragged shirt on the girl's body. Menxi's sudden violent actions understandably startled the pink-haired girl, whose adorable face was filled with panic and helplessness. Tears of grievance fell from the corners of her eyes. "No, no, don't." Seeing this, Galena, who was standing by, understood the reason behind Menxi's actions, but couldn't help feeling uncomfortable. Menxi, she's a girl after all this is." Saying this, Galena glanced around with some embarrassment. Upon hearing this, Menxi couldn't help but frown. Galena was right. Realizing this, Menxi slowly turned around, and her cold, powerful gaze instantly swept over the onlookers in the distance. The knights, who had been planning to watch the spectacle, shivered and hastily turned their heads away, no longer daring to look in their direction. At the same time, Galena cast a low-level magic spell, Great Earth Wall, and several walls of earth rose from the ground, surrounding the three of them. After confirming that there were no other prying eyes, Menxi once again focused her attention on the pink-haired girl beneath her. As Menxi met the girl's frightened, shrinking gaze, she couldn't help but take a deep breath. "I'm sorry, but for the safety of the knights, I must confirm this." Although she appeared apologetic, Menxi's tone was filled with an unyielding strength. The pink-haired girl seemed to want to resist and struggled constantly. But the moment she raised her hand, it was immediately bound by chains formed from silver light and forcibly pressed to the ground. "Yumo Pav." Yumo couldn't help but feel like crying as she watched the heroine disrobing herself, seemingly determined to inspect her own body. "Ah, no. This is all wrong. Shouldn't the heroine be gentle and polite? Why is she stripping me of my clothes straight away? This is outrageous." Yumo couldn't help but scream in her heart. As her clothes were being peeled off one by one, Yumo's face flushed a deep shade of red, making her appear even more enticing. The feeling of humiliation grew stronger within her heart. She, the grand leader of the abyssal demons, was being pinned down by a mere fifth-rank girl and stripped of her clothes. This was unbearable. "How dare you do this to me?" Yumo wanted to fight back. But considering her current restrained state, once she unleashed her power, she would possess at least the strength of a demon king. Recalling the mercenary whose head she had accidentally crushed before, Yumo couldn't help but worry. She still couldn't control her strength well. If she accidentally injured the Chosen One, it might leave some hidden dangers. Well, for the sake of the protagonist's trials in the future, I had better be careful. Furthermore, even if I managed to escape, could the heroine really survive after being in such close proximity to a demon king power? Even if she was the Chosen One, it would be too implausible and might arouse the suspicion of the Asumo's church. If the Asumo's church lost faith in the heroine, then their future trial plans would become troublesome. So, For the greater good, and to ensure that the subsequent plans would proceed smoothly, Yumo could only reluctantly accept the heroine's assault. HMPH. Anyway, there would be a task in the future trials where the heroine would fall into the hands of the abyssal demons. She could take her revenge then. Just you wait, I'll teach you a good lesson, you little brat. Yumo angrily threatened in her heart. A gentleman's revenge is best served cold. As for now, all Yumo could do was to silently endure and struggle as much as possible, trying her best to appear innocent and pitiable in order to win the heroine's sympathy. And while Yumo was muttering in her heart, the last line of defense protecting her body, her plain, cotton underwear ultimately couldn't escape the heroine's clutches and was forcefully torn off. At that moment, Yumo seemed to sense a peculiar look in the heroine's eyes. Really now, she had a problem with plain underwear. At this point, Yumo had been completely stripped, leaving her entire body exposed to the heroine's gaze. The flush on Yumo's face intensified, even spreading to the back of her neck as if emitting a tender, sweet aroma. Instinctively, Yumo wanted to cover her chest and the secret area between her legs with her hands, but since her hands were bound by the heroine's chains, she couldn't even control them. She could only let the heroine have her way with her body, causing Yumo's heart to race uncontrollably and a ripple of emotion to form in her beautiful eyes. Although her current body was simulated and disguised with the power of shadow, Yumo's inner sense of humiliation and anger continued to grow. It's over. I've been exposed. My dignity is gone. At this moment, the pink-haired girl's face was filled with a genuine grievance, far from her previous feigned appearance. Of course, apart from the grievance, there was also a touch of regret hidden in Yumo's blue eyes. If she had known it would be like this, she would have tried a different method from the beginning. As she looked at the weeping, pitiful pink-haired girl before her, when Menxi confirmed that there were no signs of the abyssal demon's injury on her body, she couldn't help but shudder. The lilac in her eyes had already lost its previous hostility, replaced with deep guilt. No, it can't be right. Could it be she really is an ordinary person? In that case, what does this mean? Did I completely misunderstand her? Carefully observing the shivering pink-haired girl before her, Menxi pursed her lips with mixed feelings. At this moment, the slave girl was completely naked, and while Menxi confirmed that there were no infection marks on her body, she also noticed the countless whip marks, unspeakable wounds and scars, and patches of frostbitten, purple skin. It was simply horrifying. There was no doubt that the girl must have suffered inhumane treatment from the slave trader before. Such a pitiable child, who had barely escaped from the clutches of the slave trader and the abyssal demon. And yet I treated her so roughly. Thinking of her own extremely violent behavior just now, Menxi felt even more guilt and self-blame, her fists clenched tightly. I'm so sorry. I will edit 43 to 60 tomorrow, so you can stop here if you want. I will just add some minor things that will not affect the story, just changing some names. Several minutes later, after completing the inspection, Galena dispelled the earth wall magic. So now, what should I do? After carefully helping the pink-haired girl dress up, the guilt in Menxi's eyes grew even stronger. The reason was simple. While dressing the girl, every time her hand touched the girl's skin, the girl would shiver. Menxi couldn't tell if it was from the pain of her wounds or fear of her. Moreover, whenever Menxi and the pink-haired girl's eyes met, there were always a mix of grievance and fear in the girl's azure eyes. Her previous rude and aggressive behavior seemed to have left a significant psychological impact on the girl, making her afraid of Menxi now. Menxi couldn't help but sigh. Since she was the one who made the mistake, she had to take responsibility. From now on, I need to be nicer to her. Also, she's curled up like this. She must be cold, right? It makes sense. After all, this is the North, and she's dressed so thinly. Noticing the girl's shivering body, Mengxi's heart couldn't help but tremble. Mengxi then slowly removed her white fur cloak from her back and wrapped it around the pink-haired girl. The cloak, made from the fur of a rank 6 snow bear, was incomparable in its ability to withstand the cold. Almost every person in the Asumo's church had one when they came to the North on a mission. After being wrapped in the cloak, the pink-haired girl was no longer shivering like before. Her gaze at Mengxi didn't seem as guarded as it was initially. "I'm sorry, little one. I was too rough with you earlier because I suspected you were infected with the power of the shadow. I'm really sorry." Mengxi tried to express her apology to the girl. "Don't be afraid. No one will hurt you from now on. I'll protect you and take you to a safe place." Mengxi continued to speak softly, her light purple eyes filled with tender emotion. With no more hostility or coldness in her presence, Mengxi appeared like an angel. Her pure and sacred words carried an unmatched affinity. However, despite this, the pink-haired girl's eyes were still filled with fear. She looked at Mengxi timidly and didn't respond, her small eyes full of caution. Seeing this, Mengxi couldn't help but shake her head, feeling a bit depressed and conflicted in her heart. There was nothing she could do. Who could blame her for being so aggressive earlier? What she could do now was try to make it up to the girl. She decided to take good care of her and look for her family when they returned to the City of Wind. If she couldn't find them, she would find a family willing to take her in. If all else failed, she would take her back to the Holy City, where there was a place specifically for taking care of such children. As she thought this, Mengxi took the water bottle from her waist and squatted down, handing it to the pink-haired girl. "Do you want to drink some water?" Yes. The girl remained silent, staring at the water bottle in Mengxi's hand. After hesitating for a moment, she finally reached out and took it. Seeing the pink-haired girl accept her water bottle, Mengxi couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. She then slowly stood up, looking towards the direction of the fortress in the distance. On the other side, seeing Mengxi's actions, Galena approached from a nearby position. She looked at the girl. "How are things now?" "Not too great. She's still quite guarded against us, or rather against me. She's not willing to talk." "I see. Sigh, who can blame her after your earlier rough handling, Captain?" "I'm sorry." "Have you apologized to the girl?" "I did, but she still seems unwilling to acknowledge me." Is that so? Although it's a normal reaction, it's still quite strange." Galena raised her hand to cover her mouth, wearing a puzzled expression. "Huh." At this, Mengxi slightly raised her eyebrows. "What's so strange about it?" "Because, usually, children like her, or even ordinary people, would quickly develop a liking for you, Captain Mengxi, and constantly try to get closer to you. Remember the rebellious little prince? He started by swinging a knife at you, but later became as docile as a little puppy." Ahem. Hearing Galena's words, Mengxi suddenly felt surprised, looking at the pink-haired girl curled up on the ground with an unexpected gaze. "Now that you mention it, it does seem a bit strange." Indeed. Due to the influence of the Holy Spirit around her body, almost all living creatures, especially intelligent beings, would unconsciously develop a liking for her. When she touched the girl earlier, she didn't deliberately restrain the power of the Holy Spirit. A regular third-rank girl could resist its effects. She still held such a strong sense of wariness towards Mengxi. Although Mengxi didn't like the effects brought by the Holy Spirit, she couldn't help but feel astonished by the current situation. Mengxi's light purple eyes narrowed slightly, looking at the pink-haired girl with a hint of depth in her gaze. Those who could resist the Holy Spirit should only be abyssal demons, right? And this child wasn't an abyssal demon, nor was she infected. So what did it mean? She could resist the influence brought by the power of the Holy Spirit. This child seems to be a bit special. Mengxi couldn't help but make this judgment in her heart. Just as Mengxi was pondering, Galena's voice once again reached her ears. "However, Captain, what should we do now? Shall we go back?" Huh. Her companion's words brought Mengxi's thoughts back to the present. The silver-haired girl looked thoughtfully at the surrounding exhausted Asumo's knights and the dozens of pitiful slaves they had just rescued. "Let's head back. Everyone's tired, and with these children, we're not in any shape to fight abyssal demons." As she spoke, Mengxi's gaze couldn't help but linger on the pink-haired girl behind her. "Also, we need to treat the wounds of these children as soon as possible." Roger Galena nodded slightly, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. "So, let's quickly prepare to set off back." "Understood." After nodding her response, Garona picked up the scattered weapons from the ground and began to methodically direct everyone's retreat. Meanwhile, driven by guilt, Mengxi slowly walked over to the pink-haired girl and spoke in as gentle a tone as possible. Little one, we're preparing to return to the city. Although you might be quite unhappy with us, or more precisely, with me, for your own safety, it's better if you come with us." Saying this, Mengxi slowly extended her right hand towards the pink-haired girl. Upon seeing Mengxi's gesture, the pink-haired little girl's blue eyes clearly revealed. However, after hesitating for a moment, the pink-haired girl finally reached out and took Mengxi's hand. Upon touching the girl's fragile, boneless hand, Mengxi couldn't help but feel even more ashamed. How could such a weak girl possibly pose a threat? What was I thinking before? At the same time, seeing that the pink-haired girl was no longer resisting, Mengxi felt a sense of relief deep within her heart. Then, with a gentle tug, the silver-haired girl lifted the pink-haired girl up from the snowy ground. "Let's go. Once we're back, someone will help you heal your wounds." Ahem. However, just as her words fell, an indescribable sense of danger suddenly entered Mengxi's mind. Causing the silver-haired girl's eyes to shrink abruptly, a rare look of horror emerged in her expression. Suddenly, under the puzzled gaze of the Asumo's knights, the usually composed captain's face changed dramatically, and she turned around in a panic, looking at everyone. "Run, run now." What's going on?" Hearing the girl's roaring voice and seeing Mengxi's unusual behavior, Galena and the other knights exchanged confused glances. However, before they could figure out what had happened, the bright sunshine was suddenly obscured by dark clouds, the earth began to tremble violently, and a howling wind swept past their ears. Accompanied by the overwhelming power of the encroaching shadows, a bizarre black fog suddenly spilled out from the depths of the winter forest. Countless deep, horrifying roars reached everyone's ears. In an instant, everyone held their breath. "You've got to be kidding me." Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story, and if have any suggestion to a new novel or want next part of any series, comment down. Our target is to get 1K subscriber. There will be SUPRISC for all of you. Stay tuned.